Translation and purport. All those who followed the principles of King Rantidev were totally favored by his mercy and became pure devotees, attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. Thus they all became the best of yogis. The best yogis or mystics are the devotees, as confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita. Yoginamapi sarvesham madgatena antaratmana shradavan bhajate yomam sameyukta tamo mata. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. The best yogi is he who constantly thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within the core of the heart. Because Rantidev was the king, the chief executive in the state, all the residents of the state became devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, by the king's transcendental association. Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai. This is the influence of a pure devotee. If there is one pure devotee, his association can create hundreds and thousands of pure devotees. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur has said that a Vaishnava is meritorious in proportion to the number of devotees he's created. A Vaishnava becomes superior not simply by jugglery of words, but by the number of devotees he has created for the Lord. Here the word Rantidevanu Vartina indicates that Rantidev's officers, friends, relatives, and subjects all became first-class Vaishnavas by his association. In other words, Rantidev is confirmed herein to be a first-class devotee or Maha-Bhagavat. Mahat Sevam Dvaram Ahurva Mukte. One should render service to such Mahatmas, for then one will automatically achieve the goal of liberation. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has also said, Chadiya Vaishnav Seva Nishtara Payet Chare Keba. One cannot be liberated by his own effort, but if one becomes subordinate to a pure Vaishnava, the door to liberation is open. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshushan Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishkan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radhakant Namostute Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhivrindavanishvari Vishabhanu Sutadevi pranamami haripriye vanjakopatarubhyascha kripa sindubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Rama Hare Hare. Tat prasanganu bhavena ranti devanuvartana bhavan yogana sarve narayana parayana. Rantidev's described here as talking about bhakti yoga with his associates, family members, friends, servants. And the result is that they become first-class mystic yogis or bhakti yogis. Srila Prabhupada starts the purport by quoting Sri Krishna, saying that the devotee is the highest yogi. Krishna describes the symptoms and Madgatena means he's thinking of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that one who thinks of the Lord is simultaneously a yogi and a devotee. And because Krishna is certain that Arjuna cannot give up fighting, he wants him to fight while thinking of him. Remembering Krishna, fight, he says, fight while remembering me. In this way, you're the highest yogi, you're a devotee. And the result will be that you'll be able to remember me at the time of death. So Krishna is training Arjuna not just to do his duty, but also to prepare for the time of death. If Arjuna's killed on the battlefield, he'll die thinking of Krishna. And if he doesn't die on the battlefield, later when he dies, he'll remember Krishna. Arjuna is also curious about the time of death. He asks Krishna several times in the Bhagavad Gita about the time of death. So Krishna wants him to understand, he wants us to understand that we have to remember Krishna at the time of death in order to attain him. And to do that, to learn how to do that, Krishna is advising Arjuna and us, you completely surrender to me now and do your occupational duty as transcendental loving service. So he's describing something that's external. We all have our services. this morning we heard the announcement that the Goshal devotees were doing the service of baling hay yesterday. They just finished the baling for the summer. And they baled 225, they put 225 bales of hay in the barn with the help of the oxen. The oxen hauled all the bales from the fields. So externally, they're thinking of Krishna when they're doing their service. But there's also an internal dimension described by Krishna. Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena anta ratmana. Madgatena means you think of me, and antaratma means the internal side is there. Your inner self is being described. Within yourself, you're thinking of me. The words madgatena mean either thinking of Krishna or someone who comes to Krishna, someone who's abiding in Krishna. And this is done internally, just by the inner self. Although there's external duties that we perform, the inner self has to be engaged also. And the inner self is trained how to have faith in Krishna. Shadavan bhajate yumam. He hears the Shastra, he hears the scriptures, and he learns how to act with Shraddha, with faith. And this makes him progress. And the result of his progress is that Krishna enters into the devotee's existence. Thoughts of Krishna are in the devotee's heart. And so Krishna's entered within the existence of the devotee. That's progress. When you're thinking of Krishna, Krishna is within you. And you're absorbed always in thoughts of Krishna, madgatena. So that's the ideal yogi. He concentrates his attention on Krishna. On Shyama Sundar. Shyama Sundar is, of course, colored like a cloud. Here we see Radha Gokulananda, the color white, but we still concentrate on their beautiful features. Yesterday we heard Dayal Baladev, he nicely described that the three features of the Lord that attract us to the different levels of service. Madan Mohan attracts us to devotional service. So the lotus feet of the Lord represent Madan Mohan, and Govinda, who represents the execution of the processes of devotional service, is represented by the Lord's lotus mouth, because he gives instructions how to execute devotional service. And then Gopinath is represented by the Lord's heart, the goal, the prayojana. We want to unite with the heart of Krishna. Krishna's lotus face, Lord Brahma says, Krishna's lotus face is as effulgent as the sun. Very bright face. And of course we see Krishna dressed every day, and the dress is made more brilliant by all the jewels on the dress, and the flower garlands adorn the body of Krishna. And around Krishna we see his luster, his bodily effulgence, the Brahmana effulgence, if we can see the Brahmana effulgence. He has an aura. We may not be looking to see that. We don't pay too much attention to the Brahman effulgence, but Krishna has that. And he descends as a human being, so it's easy for us to keep our mind on him. He acts like a human being, the son of Yashoda, or the son of Vasudeva. He acts like the perfect child. He acts like a husband. He acts like a friend and a master. And he's full with so many opulences and transcendental attributes and qualities. When he's talking to Arjuna, he's describing his supreme position. It's amazing, really, when you think of it. Krishna's in front of Arjuna describing all these opulences that he has, all the transcendental qualities he has. So the devotees, they are compared. When Baladev Vijayabhusan is commenting on this verse, Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antara, the devotees are the highest yogis. Baladev Vijayabhusan says that Krishna is kind of grading others. You know, they're the tapasvis, they're the karmis, but the yogis and the devotees who are, they're the highest yogis. Others are all inferior to the devotees. And the example is given by way of comparison that there's so many mountains. Some are short, some are tall. There's even the tallest one. Everybody knows that Mount Everest is the tallest one. But still they're all inferior if there's a mountain made of gold. The mountain made of gold would be the most valuable, Baladev Vijayabhusan says. So that's compared to the devotee. And the devotee is being glorified here. Rantidev is singled out as the Mahabhagavat devotee. And those who have his association, they're described as not just having his sangha, but prasanga. Sangha means association. Pra means something more elevated, something more intimate. So prasanga anubhavena. Because of this association of Rantidev, talking about Bhakti Yoga, these devotees all attain the highest status of yogis and devotees. In the association of a Mahabhagavat, devotees acquire knowledge of Krishna and also his association. They learn the names of Krishna, they learn to chant. We visit the places where Krishna is residing. We come to the temple, we go to the holy dhams. So Krishna's names, Krishna's places, Krishna's words, his instructions, the topics about Krishna, this all becomes palatable in the association of pure devotees who enlighten us. And Srila Prabhupada described that, he said, Just as we perk up, we pay attention, we perk up when someone says our name. We hear someone talking about us. So Krishna is also inclined to pay attention when we chant His name or we talk about Him. It works with Krishna just as it works with ordinary people. We become more receptive to whoever knows more about us. If someone is our close friend, someone knows us, then we're receptive to what that person says and does. So as we're associating with Krishna and learning to serve Krishna, Krishna is becoming more receptive to us. It's a growing thing. We shouldn't think, oh, devotional service has become static. I'm just doing the same thing. No, it's actually it's bringing us closer to Krishna, and Krishna is becoming closer to us also, more receptive to us. We just have to pay attention, and we'll see that this is true. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, whoever renders services unto me in devotion is a friend, and he's in me, and I'm also a friend to him. Here the associates of Rantidev, they're described as following the principles of devotional service and becoming very much favored by Rantidev. The word totally is used. Rantidev totally favored the people around him by his mercy. They became devotees of Narayan. And Prabhupada stresses that one devotee who's pure can make thousands of pure devotees. He's just inclined that way to totally favor them, and certainly Srila Prabhupada totally favored his disciples. They found that he was so totally in their favor, helping them. And that's because, one reason is because the devotees were surrendered. They took pleasure in Krishna. They found Krishna palatable, just as Prabhupada found Krishna palatable. The devotees also, his disciples, they found this palatable. And the other type of people didn't. There are the non-devotees. They cannot understand Krishna. They don't find chanting Hare Krishna palatable. So it's natural that a pure devotee favors those who are receptive to Krishna. It's kind of funny the way the non-devotees don't find Krishna palatable. It's kind of funny to us. We all probably have some family members who don't find Krishna very palatable. I visited my brothers and sister a few years ago for a reunion, and in the weeks before we got together, my brother was sending some emails to me laying down some rules for the meeting, like, don't talk to us about Krishna, because it's not palatable. So I thought, okay, I'll lay down some rules too. So I said, I'm not going to sit with you when you're eating because you'll be eating meat. And I'm a vegetarian. It would be unethical of me to do that. So fortunately, they had a separate extra house next to their house that they let me use. So I could chant there and I could prepare prasadam and do yoga. And, I tried, I distributed some prasad to them, and I, talked about how nice it is to do yoga and be a vegetarian. But it was what they call a hard sell. they're not buying. They're not in the market. But they were trying to be nice. They bought me some things. But it's different, than Ranti Dev's relatives and friends and his subjects. They were not meat eaters. They were not drinkers. They were not smokers. And they were not interested in illicit sex. So they all became pure devotees. But non-devotees simply can't understand Krishna easily in the way that devotees do. And Srila Prabhupada was considering this. This was very much on Srila Prabhupada's mind when he arrived and when he went to America and arrived in America 50 years ago. His predecessor, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, had sent transcendental literature to America, to Canada, to some of the intellectuals in Europe. So persons like Emerson and Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Emerson, they'd seen some versions of Bhagavad Gita and were reading them and praising them. They found it edifying. But Prabhupada pointed out to us several times, they didn't become devotees. There are many editions now of Bhagavad Gita in so many countries, but people don't become devotees when they read these books because they're not discussing these books with pure devotees. They're simply taking the Bhagavad Gita as something like armchair philosophy, or Prabhupada said table talk, just something to talk about around the table. Without the example of a pure devotee, they don't make progress. When Prabhupada reads the Bhagavad Gita or talks about the Bhagavad Gita, speaks about Krishna, he's very much relishing it. It's very palatable, and he's making it palatable to others. Right? Nice picture of Prabhupada lecturing. So Prabhupada said, when I came and presented Bhagavad Gita, then people became devotees. But 250 years before that, when Emerson read the Bhagavad Gita, well, he was impressed and he wrote a poem or two. Thoreau was impressed. People still read Bhagavad Gita as academics. They read it sometimes out of literary interest. But because they didn't have the association of pure devotee, this is why Prabhupada opened centers. This was his mission, to give people the chance to associate with pure devotees and to have the intimate association, to be trained by the devotees how to do devotional service. I was fortunate to receive this mercy. I got the opportunity to join a center and learn. When I joined in California, Srila Prabhupada happened to be in Los Angeles, and I attended a class by him before he left on a tour. He left America just after I joined, a couple of days after I joined, but I got to hear his class. And when he was giving the class, the devotees were all around the Vyasa-san, and it was quite crowded. I couldn't go close. I actually sat near the altar during the class. But then after the class, the devotees started to disperse. Prabhupada had been in Los Angeles for, I think, a couple of months. And so they had to go about their routine daily activities. But Prabhupada remained on the Vyasa-san, and a few devotees stayed in the temple room and had a kirtan at the end. And Prabhupada was listening and sitting. So I moved closer to him. I actually went to the Vyasa-san and stood on the right side of the Vyasa-san, and Prabhupada turned and looked at me. And of course he didn't recognize me. I just arrived. But I was very grateful. I was thinking, I'm so grateful that Prabhupada came all the way from India and opened these centers. Because now we can see Krishna on the altar. We can serve Krishna on the altar. We can learn about Krishna, how to serve Him. So Prabhupada was concentrated on this, that I have to give the association to the non-devotees. I have to teach the non-devotees how to do this. That only happens in the association of a pure devotee. That people will learn devotional service only in the association of other devotees. Today's verse, it starts Tattvavit. There's another famous verse that starts just like this. Maybe you know it. Satam prasangam mama virya samvido. It says the same thing in the association of the devotees. What are they doing? Mama virya samvido. Krishna. This is Lord Kapila speaking. He says they're discussing my glories. Mama virya. Virya means wonderful, something that's full of potency, actually. When Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, his words are full of potency. We don't find any words like these spiritual words in the Bhagavad Gita. We don't find these words in ordinary languages. They're so surcharged with spiritual meaning, the words of the Bhagavad Gita. And they have potency. They're not like ordinary topics. They enlighten a person, full of spiritual potency. We all know, I just heard a story from Godruma Bihari the other day about him and Dwarka Puri and Shruti Dharma and a number of other devotees, how they were affected by hearing from the Hare Krishna devotees. Back in 1979, 1980, the Hare Krishna devotees were going to Southall in London, to the Hindu temples, and holding what they called Mahabharat youth programs. They were appealing to the young Gujarati people, come and attend the Mahabharat youth program at the Hindu temple. Godruma's father was a Hindu priest in one of the temples, so he was living in one of the temples, and he said it was really easy to go to the program. It was just down the hall or down one floor. So he attended, and other young Gujaratis attended, and they became devotees, all of them. The names I mentioned, Shruti Dharma and Dwarka Puri, others. Because Krishna's message is so potent, it changed them. And their parents were horrified. So their parents went to the organizers of the Hindu temple and said, you have to stop these Mahabharat youth programs. Very bad programs. So Prabhupada says this is how a devotee influences, a pure devotee influences others. He can create devotees. It's not that a devotee is just someone who juggles words, but he has an effect on others. And he creates devotees for the Lord. This is his service to the Lord, to engage others in the Lord's service. And the verse I was mentioning, Satam Prasanga Mama Birya Samvado, it describes that this talking about Krishna's activities and so on, it's very pleasing to the heart and to the ear. Ritkarna Rasayana means pleasing. One devotee in ISKCON was initiated with the name Rasayana. And then the effect of this is that they make advancement, those who hear. Joshanat Asvapara Bharga Vartmani. Tajoshanat Ashvapavarga Vartmani. They make advancement on the path of liberation. And their faith becomes firm, Shraddha. Firm faith, they attain firm faith and attraction to Krishna, Rati, and Bhakti, Shraddha, Rati, Bhakti. These things follow the activity of associating with the devotee. Shraddha, Rati, and Bhakti. And one becomes freed from birth and death. And his attraction to Krishna becomes fixed. And then his real bhakti develops. So it's so important that people get the association of Krishna conscious persons who are engaged in devotional service, because they can't make advancement otherwise. Prabhupada said, okay, let's say that maybe they can make some theoretical advancement by reading books. Let's say that. Is that possible? Someone might wonder. And Prabhupada then would answer no in one lecture. No, they also have to give up the association of materialists. Okay, so you can't just be a materialist and read books about bhakti and expect to understand bhakti. You have to disassociate yourself from the materialists. So who are you going to associate with? If you don't disassociate yourself from the materialists and get the association of advanced devotees, then when you read these books, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, you may think that the activities of the Lord that are being described, they're simply some historical events or something mythological or maybe even something fictional. You won't get that devotion to Krishna. That won't become fixed. Your taste won't become established unless these books are explained in the proper mood. So you need the person who understands the absolute truth to, as a person, to explain to you that devotional service is meant for the Supreme Person. Service is meant for a person. It must be offered to a person. Otherwise, there's no meaning to the word devotion. There's the devotee, there's devotion, and the object of devotion. So you won't get that without the association of someone like Ranti Dev or Srila Prabhupada, who can show you and explain in the right way. But if you get this association, then you develop the right consciousness for serving the Lord. And you become situated in transcendental position. And gradually you become a perfect devotee yourself. Just like it's said in this verse, Ranti Dev's followers became perfect yogis and perfect devotees. Talking about Krishna and giving their inner self, giving their love to Krishna. And Krishna reciprocates with that. He becomes established within the devotee's heart. When the devotee comes to Krishna, the Lord also comes to the devotee. Okay, any questions?